Hey guys, welcome to today's video. In the last project, we just used the standard bearer-based authentication. But in this video, we shall be extending it further on the authentication side and we shall be adding support for MFA. In this video, we shall be continuing and extending our last demo where we had the integration of AWS Cognito with .NET Core based project. Now you can use either SMS based or app based OTPs that is actually called TOTP. In this demo, we shall be doing it via TOTP based MFA. If you want to do it for SMS based, the approach would be more or less similar. So guys, just a quick point, if you do like this video and want to view more, you can subscribe to the channel and you can also hit the bell icon so that none of the videos are missed out. We would be having a few more videos down the line on integration with AWS Cognito on different aspects of the managed identity. If you don't want to be left out, hit the subscribe button and press the bell icon to get notified immediately as the new video comes up. So let's begin. All right, so if you go to Amazon Cognito API reference, and this is specifically Amazon Cognito user pool API reference, you will find a lot of methods which are there within the API, and you can actually use all of these methods to control different aspects of the managed identity. Now, if you see over here, there are quite a few methods which are like, so these are basically actions and we call them as methods, but if we want to call them using the standard REST, so they are going to be passed on as an action. Now there are quite a few of these actions or methods which are prefixed with admin. Now we are not going to call any of these methods for this demo. Basically all these methods where admin is prefixed, so these are sort of administrator operations. And to actually call these methods, you need to have the IAM key and secret. They can't be called with the client ID and client secret, just like we use in the last demo. So anyways, we would be covering a few aspects of those in the next video. For today's purpose, we are going to be calling a few of the APIs from here. And if you see over here, there are quite a lot of operations that you can do. If you want to, let's say, do some group management, or if you want to find all the users, here's a list users method. Likewise, we have sign up, sign, forget password. So all of these operations are there that you can actually use. But when we want to add MFA, a flow is a bit different. So what we are going to do, first step would of course be logging into the system. Once we are logged in and we get the access and the identity token, the next step that we are going to follow is to call this associate software token. And this method you can right away find, it should be somewhere here. Yes, here it is. So this is a method and it has all the parameters that are needed. You would find over here. And the next step is like we generate, so what we get from here, we get secret key, a shared secret from here. This is the secret code of length 16, minimum length 16, sorry. And with that secret, we would be generating an OTP by registering in the app using the QR code. And that OTP is then sent to the verify software token, which is again here, verify software token. And if you see like there we pass in a few parameters over here as well. And once that is done, we need to update the user preferences to enforce the MFA compliance. So that seems actually pretty easy, but the problem is the documentation around this is quite scarce. So I tried out using Postman to run these operations, and believe me, it's very, very difficult. Not exactly difficult, but I would say documentation. For instance, we have to pass in action within the Postman API, and you will I was not able to actually find out the value of the action. I tried out a lot around the Stack Overflow communities, and it's like after an hour of searching or so, I was able to find the exact values that we need to pass in when we are sending a raw REST request. And like what values actually work. That is the main problem over here. So anyways, let's start. So the first thing that we will be doing is to set up the code again, setting up the Cognito pool again to get it working with our set of code that we have. And if you want to have a detailed video, the link is available on the top right, and again in the description as well. You can follow that. It should be available. Otherwise, you can just follow along this video as well, and we will be doing all the basic steps for configuration and setup. So here is the repository, cloud identity sample, and I'm just going to clone this repository first. Clone the repository and pull out the code. All right. By the time the solution loads, let's configure our pool as well. And for that, we need to go into Cognito, which is available right here. Let's create a new pool. I should have a test pool available, but let's create a new pool just for this demo. So if you want to have a detailed demo, you can of course view the previous video. If you just want to get along, you can refer this video as well. I have this pool, but let's create a new pool. Let the users register themselves, and then we have this MFA verification and options. Now this is a very important screen, and the reason being the settings that you see in the first option. Do you want to enable multi-factor authentication? Now you can set it to required, or you can set it to optional. But what if you set it to a required one, you would not be able to change it. So you cannot change these settings once so these are only available at the time of creation of the app pool. Once you are done, you have created your user pool, it will not be available. So I will set it to optional, and the reason being I want this control inside my web application to actually register these multi-factor authentication. If you set it to required, at the time of registration itself, it will mandate the MFA or a TOTP to be registered. Now we can use of course SMS stats message as well. We'll not be using that. Let's go with the time based OTP or a TOTP. And then how will the users be able to recover their accounts? So let's say I want my administrators to have the control, and I don't want the users to like reset their passwords. This process has actually changed. Earlier it used to take some time over here. Now it's like very smooth. It's almost instant. Now two things that we need to do. Let me open a notepad as well. Sorry. All right. So first thing that we need to do is we need to go to app clients. We need to add an app client and web client one. Let's use a very simple names, and no changes actually over here. Let's try to keep it as simple as possible. So there are different auth flows that are available, and maybe we can cover these different auth flows, like what does what, maybe in a separate videos. Do let me know in the comment section if you should follow on that. Anyways, let's create the app client. So this is created. Let me copy these important parameters, and client secret is this. So this would be required while configuring. So let's do that, and app is created. The next thing that you want to do is you should go to the app client settings, and here just like select all. Now we would be using authorization code and implicit, because we would be needing both the identity and access token. So I'll select those. I'll select all the claims, open ID, profile. So if you see over here, these are the pretty simple ones, phone, email, OpenID, profile. But there's a reserved scope as well called AWS Cognito Sign In User Admin. And this is something that we need to select. Reason being, if you want to do any of the account specific operations on behalf of user, we need to have this admin scope selected. So for this demo, I would be using the same values that I used in the last demo as well. And let's call it a leaf server. And I will have something. So the solution is open and I can just close these. And if I go over here, I need to change the parameters in my app settings file. All right, so these are the previous ones. Let me just change these values. And I need to get the authority and the logout URI. We need to update the domain name over here. That's called Amazon Cognito domain. And I'll use the same values over here and just select it availability. It is available and I will press save changes. All right, and now just copy this value. This is the domain and that we can update directly over here. This is my domain name. One thing more I need to do is to change the authority, and this is available right from here. So if you see, this is the pool ID, and this pool ID we need to update right over here. Yes, so we have updated both the values and it should be good. So startup part is already ready. Some changes since the last demo. I have changed it to use more of the I have changed it to use the configuration using the configuration provider and not the raw values directly over here. All right, so there's a problem over here and I need to update that. Let me just quickly fix the code, otherwise it will not work. All right, and this is also needs to be updated, and I will have a similar thing dot value. Let me just put it, and it will be client ID. So let me just update this on server as well, otherwise other users would get problem on this one. Just let me quickly do that. So let's commit the change. And I should have this value. Yes. So let's just try to quickly run and see how does the application actually runs. If there are any configuration errors or problem, just let's see that first. All right, so we have the application started. Let's just quickly move into Cognito, and I should see a sign-in page from AWS Cognito, which is not coming for some reason. So if you're getting error accessing document, the best way is we can open this URL, and there is a URL we need to append well known, the followed by OpenID hyphen configuration, and this should actually open up the domain name. And what's the error? AP South 1, this doesn't exist. So let's see what did we actually missed out. AP okay, so problem is this: we are going into US phase 2. This is typo, we need to update this as well. AP South 1 as well. Yes. So this is a domain name. I think we missed out this one. Let me quickly update. So whenever you face similar problem, the first thing that we should always check is to see like the same URL. So we can do something, whatever the authority we are passing in, we can use well known followed by open ID configuration. So this works for all the OpenID this works for all the OpenID compatible system, and if this page opens, that means like the discovery endpoint is available and we can continue. I'll just delete it from here and let's try to run it now, and now we should see the Amazon Cognito page. So we have the application up and running. Now let's just open the secured area, and now we should see a prompt. Invalid scope. What did we do wrong? There are, so you're bound to get these problems. All right, the problem is there is a double slash. Let's try to see if we can edit it. No, we cannot edit it. Let's just add one more. Shit, we are just doing the opposite one. Let's add. To see. It's leaves. My bad. All right, now it should be fine. Hope. All right, so we are here. Now what I need to do is, since we are coming in for the first time, let's create a new account, and it will just ask those detail. I'll press the sign up. It will send me a verification code on my email ID that I need to put in. Now this should work. Yes. So at this point we are there, like where we have left till the last time. So first thing that I need to do is basically I need to use the pool ID that we have set up over there. So we use the URL directly over here, but this is our pool ID. You can validate by going here, and this is the pool ID. So we would be needing these value in various operations. So let's just separate this from the authority endpoint. One more thing that I generally do tend to do while working in a dev environment is I update the login settings so that I get all the logs, and it is by default set to information warning information, and I'll just update it to trace for all the three instances, or maybe we can just remove these one and have the default one. Anyways, let's leave it like this, and this is for the development environment, not for the main file. So the next thing that we are going to do is open our controller and actually have these operations where we can actually generate these tools, and I'll rename into generate MFA code. Now to separate out the sort of responsibility, let's add a few helper classes over here. And the way we do is I'll just add a folder. If you want in your project, you can have this in a separate assembly, separate library, or you can leave it like this as well. And I'll call it Cognito Access, and I'll add interface over here. My machine has gone slow, and for the sake of it, just let's just call it iUser helper. Okay, now let's just quickly see like what we need to do. So if we come back to our code, our flowchart, we have set up this login method. Now we need to fetch your secret from the server, and we need to call this particular associate software token method. So what I'll do, I'll just create a method over here, and this is going to be in string. And let's call it generate secret, and it will take no parameters. I'll also add a implementation for this class. Sorry, this is going to be an interface, and I'll have all right, implement the method. So this method would be responsible for generating the secret keys which are presented as a QR code to the user. So while we do that, the first thing that we need to do is to get the Cognito SDK. So let's add the SDK first. And we need to use this package AWS SDK.Cognito Identity Provider. I'll just install the latest version of the package. Alright, that should be fine. Now we need some injections. We need to have the Cognito client over here. Let's create an instance. So let's add the new Amazon client, and it receives two things. The first thing is the secure credentials that we need to pass in, and the other thing is the region. Now, since we are using the client ID and client secret for the OAuth clients that we've generated, what we can do simply is we can pass in here as anonymous AWS credentials, and that will work out pretty well. We would be using the access token that we've generated. And we are in AP South 1. I'll just select that, and we are good. And let me move this declaration at class level. All right, private, that should be fine. Now, one more thing that I need over here, that would be HTTP client accessor. So we need to use the access token for all the operations. All right, so let's just try to see what is expected from here. So if we see, if we just client dot associate, so we have the method over here, if you see, and it takes in a request, and the request is pretty simple. Now it has access token and a session, so we need to pass in either of these. We would be using the access token. Now this access token, where it will come? It will come from our HTTP context. And if we want to fetch any of the HTTP context properties from outside the controller classes, what we can do is we can pass in HTTP context accessor, and that will provide us the same thing. Let me just initialize the field. Yep. And we can fetch the token. We can fetch the access token like this. it will be the awaited call. And this is the awaited call. We need to add a sync over there. Perfect. And this token we can right away call here, and this should work fine. And we just return secret response dot secret dot. So this should work fine. We can actually try and see it. Let's just quickly do that. Let it build. And what we can do is we can try to see if the code is coming or not, and we can quickly debug that using something like this. Okay, so before we use this class in our controller, we need to inject this class as well. And if you know how we do it, we go into startup where we have the registrations being done, and we add services.add scoped, and this would be my iUser helper, and my instance would be user helper. I'll just pass in, and now I can actually inject this in my controller. So let's just inject the interface. So var secret equal to await and once we get this value, what we need to do is we need to let's just return content, and we pass in the secret. So let's just try to run it and see like how does the application behave to this. So ideally what should be expected is we should be getting the random string of the secret that is provided by the AWS Cognito, and that should be printed since we're using the raw result. And we have some error. Let's try to see. This is HTTP context accessor while this. Alright, so I injected the instance. I need to have the interface type as well. So once we do this, what we see, we should see a string of the secret that is passed in by AWS. Let's just quickly run and see. So if you see, we already have these detailed logs actually coming over here. So if you want to debug or see like what is actually happening, it would be directly available from here. Now let's just go to a secured area. And again, while working, if you're working, I would request like we should probably have this running in the incognito mode. And the reason being, we can directly change any of these so once we close the browser, the session is closed and we can start fresh. So preferably we should have this. All right, we are in, and okay, we need to add the menu as well. But anyways, let's just try to directly open our controller action. Name was generate MFA code. I will just try it. So we'll update the link shortly. Let's just see like what happens over here. And we have an error. Access button doesn't have the required scopes. And let's just try to see like how does the configuration look. This error actually comes up when we don't have the Cognito, but this is already there. Okay, So we have selected this scope, but we have not added those in our request. So what we need to do is we need to add those in our request as well, and that would be pretty easy. We just go to a startup file. So these are actually the errors that you would also face, and the idea being you should be able to see like what's the problem and what would be the reason for that. Let's quickly add. Now we should have the required scope, and again I'll just close the incognito window so that we start fresh. All right, so we have the application open. Let me close the mail. All right, so there seems to be some problem with the browser window. I think it's logged in actually. Let's open the. All right, so we have the code. Now, if you have browsed any of these websites, the ideal way it proceeds is like we are presented with a QR code and we scan that code and then we proceed forward. So now we are going to add the functionality to put it into a QR format and display that to the user. For that purpose, we would be using a library called QR coder. To add that, it's pretty simple. Go over here, add QR coder. This should be fine. We install the library and we get a running code from here. So you just need to go to GitHub QR coder, open this library, and we will have the demo code that would be working. And if you see, so there are different ways, different payloads, how we call this. So, and we need to have this OTP QR code. So I will click on a one-time password and it will give me a working code. I'll just copy the code over here for generating the QR code. Okay, install. All right, we don't need this now. I'll have this, and my code is secret is this, issuer is AWS Cognito AWS LDC 2021, and username we can pass in. It's pretty easy. Username identity dot name. So that should work fine. And now we would be here. So what it does, it basically generates an image. Now, if we need to use this image inside our view where we want to show it to user, we need to have it as an image or a memory stream, inside a memory stream, and we will dump it over there. And that is actually quite easy. We will just open a memory stream over here. So we use the same number just as presented up over here. So this is the same code, and we can actually comment this out now. We generate the image. Now we have that. We will save the image inside our memory stream. And let's use PNG. And the next thing that I will do is the next thing that we need to do is to put it in a view bar, And this is a very tricky part. So when we need to put in the image, if we want to use the image inside our view from a memory stream, there's a particular format that we need to put it into. So we, let's say, like, call it viewbat.image equal to, and now we need to provide a data types. So we need, and we need to use the data representation, and it's something like this. It's basically a meta tag that represents, and then we have this base 64, the format type. This, and this will be followed by convert to base 64 string, and we passing the memory stream dot to array. So what this will do, it will convert the memory stream to an array, and then it will convert to a base 64 string. Once that is converted, what it will do, it will put append this data to the memory representation of the image. So this way, this view bag holder will now have the image set, and now we can directly use it inside our view. Let's add the view as well. Let's remove everything. So we have this. This needs braces. After that, we generate the image. Generation is pretty easy. Image. So let's try to run this and actually see how does it behave. We should actually see a QR code once the application starts. Alright, so we have the QR code up and running, which can be scanned inside our application. Now, what is the next step? Well, the next step is to actually scan this QR code and generate an OTP, and then we need to verify the OTP. So to do that, let's add a form over here which will accept this. And before we add form, let's add a model as well. And I will just call it user secret model. So I'll add a few properties. And I'll add one more property over here. It's just for simplicity. You can use redirection or whatever you want. And basically what we want to do over here is, like, if the code is successful, we should just display a success message, and that we can do based on this flag. All right. And now to add this model to our view. So this should work fine, and I can have something like this. If it is this, and in case it is not there, I need to present the form to the user, where the user can submit the form and method. So we are using the ASP tag helpers over here, and a lot of code is automatically generated by that. Okay, this should work. Now coming to our model controller. Let me just send the default one over here, and I'll refactor this out into separate method because we would be needing this in the new method again. So this is all abstracted out. Now let's add one more method which will accept user secret model as parameter, and it will be an HTTP post. That looks fine. We will come over here in a minute. And one more thing, so the code that is generated, that is of 6 digits. But again, if we use a type int over here within our model, the problem would be it will show an numeric box type where numbers are there. But again, if the user, let's say if the code starts with 0004, all the zeros will be removed out and it will just have something like 44 that would be sent out. So we don't want that behavior, and for that reason we are using a string over here. But of course we want to have certain validations over here, and for that reason let's add a required parameter. This would be required, and this will have a min length of 6, and this will also have a max length of 6. So this should work, and I can have I can pass in certain error messages. And same error message I can use in my other message as well, and this should work fine. Now that is part one. We also need to display these messages, and that is also quite easy. We just need to go into our form, need to add div ASP for validation summary, and type will be all. Let's move it to all. Right, so we have the message, we have displayed the message, and now we need to update our post method to validate and verify this. So two things we need to do. The user code has to be of 6 length and it has to be a number. And how we do that? If int dot try parse so either it is not parsable into number or length is not 6. In that case, what we do, we add error to the model state. And the first parameter that we need to pass is the name of the property, and the best way I would say is to use the name of parameter, and then we pass in the error. All right, now if my model state is valid, in that case I move into a loop, otherwise I'll just show the same screen again where we generate the code. So that looks pretty fine. Now inside our validation, if we go back to our chart, now we need to call the we need to do actually two operations. One is verify software token, and the other one is the update user preference to use the software token. So let's do that now. Now I just store it in a variable which is actually a bool. It will come from, again we need to use the same library that we have, and and two things we need to send: user code and the device name. So I have already seen this API earlier, but if you just want to see, you can just go over here, and if you see, we need to have an access token that we receive directly inside our helper class, then a friendly device name, this is something that we have passed, and then the user code that we are sending. So two things we have passed, session we are not using. Let's generate this method, and I will use the return type as task of bool. Let's implement in the class. All right, now first step is the token that would be required. Let's keep it that, and if we use so if you see over there, verify software, there are all these helper libraries are already provided if you're using the .NET functionality. And what we need to, so we need to get the user code, which is the model user code, and we need to get the access token, which is the token that we have, and the third parameter is the friendly device name, which is the model device name. Right, let me just rename this signature. All right, that looks fine. And so what it does, if the token registration, if the token is fine or it's valid, it registers that and it returns success as a part of the response. So we need to check that, and that can be done by this verification result dot status dot value, and we can use something like this. So this is success, and then we do return true. Otherwise, we'll just return false. Now there is one more problem over here. If we go back to our documentation page, we will see a particular exception in case the token is not valid. This exception is thrown when there is a code mismatch and the service fails to configure the software TOTP. So we need to listen for these exceptions. So we can put this part inside a try catch, and in case of a catch, we will just return the false. Try. Just let me move this code to here. We need to split it so that it is available. Initialize it, move it outside. That should work fine. Now we need to catch a few exceptions, or we can do simply like this. Since we want to improvise the code rather than writing inside each catch block, and in that case we don't need this, we can just use a var reverting the code. All right, now we need to use this one as well. All right, any other? No, should be fine. So yes, now this will work. Any of the exception, if the code is not being matched, there's some problem, some error, in that case it will just return a false from here, and in case it is being set, we will return a true. Now one more thing, what we have done, if you see over here, where's our flow? So we have set the verify software token correctly, but now we need to update the user preferences as well, so that the MFA is enforced. Now again, this is an optional one, but ideally if you are registering an MFA token, it would be preferable to like mandate it for the user. And that is also not much of a task. So if let's say if we are over here, if the verification result is success, in that case what we need to do is we need to call one method that's called setup MFA preferences async, and this is an awaited method. We need to do that, and what we call setup MFA request. First part is the access token, which is again the same that we have sent. Then we need to use the SMS and the software. Since we're using the software token, we'll set it to this. And again, there are two properties: enabled, yes, and this is the preferred one, yes. So we'll save this, and it should work pretty well. Anything left out, we do that. All right, generate secret if all goes well. Okay, and we don't need to do, we don't need this. In this case, we can just set model dot is verified, and this would be of course an awaited call. All right, that looks good. Let's just run it and try to see how this actually works out. Let's go to secured area. So what I would be doing, I would be using this extension called Authenticator, and let me quickly add a link to generate a token. This would be available inside my layout. So before we move forward, one quick point over here. I need to update this. Since now we are getting the model, I'll just use that only. And now let's try to run this and see like what happens. So let's go to regenerate MFA. I'll use my extension to scan the HR QR code. Sorry. In ideal world, we would be using mobile authenticator app for this purpose. So this is added beneath the other LDC. Now let's just get the code from here. And if you see, it is right here beneath the LDC, and we have the code as well. So 94425. So it is valid. Okay, so now this is a problem. It will again generate this code, which I don't want actually. So let's add, I'll update the code in a moment. And now let's see. Okay, user MFA code is successfully verified. Now let's try to log out and log in again to see like if it asks for the code or how's the behavior. Alright, so if you see now, it is asking me for test device 1, which is I have just enabled, and this code I will get from here. If I just 68271 sits, let's try the wrong code, 68271, I'll just press something and it is invalid. And if I use straight away this one, so that's it guys. We have successfully added the MFA integration in our application. This video has gone a bit long. I feel so. But maybe like you can view specific parts. Do let me know if you have any queries. If you get stuck somewhere, just let me know via comment section. I do have a set of Postman APIs as well. Just let me know in the comments if you need to access those. Maybe I can share that. Should not be a problem. Ideally, I can do that. If the video helps you even a bit, press the like button. That is definitely going to motivate me. And subscribe to our channel. More videos are coming in continuation to this series. Press the bell icon to get notified and don't be left out and you don't miss anything. Thank you. Have a good day.